can grab that.
I'm texting him right now.
Welcome to the Wolverine Digest podcast, the best spot for objective and authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown, joined as always by Chris Breiler.
I was going to start by saying go blue.
Holy balls, dude. Holy balls. Well, happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday indeed. Happy
literally,
Friday.
As we were about to hit the button to go live, news breaks across the wire that Connor Stalions has been fired. It's being reported by a couple different outlets. I think, Chris, you just said you saw Dan Wetzel. I see some
Wetzel, yeah.
ESPN. Is Wetzel with ESPN or is he Yahoo? Either way, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at this point. Big people who have been covering this thing from the onset are now reporting that he has been fired, which, Chris, you have trying to switch that soundboard there. Chris, you've had a pretty steadfast opinion on what that would mean. If you'd like to read it for everybody.
Well, I had thought, from the beginning that if Connor Stalions ended up getting fired, then it would be a strong indication that he broke whatever NCAA regulations were out there, and it would be a strong indication of guilt. And I think that this probably has a lot to do with the meeting that took place with President Ono and Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti this afternoon. And I think it is a critical step in what will ultimately be additional punishment for Michigan, for head coach Jim Harbaugh. How quickly that happens, what it ultimately looks like at the end, I think is anybody's guess at this point. But it's clear, and we'll talk about it a little bit, that the crowd of something needs to happen now, action needs to happen immediately, has grown significantly over the last week. It started out with just prominent members of the media saying the Big Ten has to do this, the Big Ten has to do that. And then it continued with a conference call among all Big Ten coaches where, if you believe the reporting, basically the coaches were unanimous in their belief that something had to happen. And then Commissioner Petitti followed that up the following day by talking to athletic directors around the Big Ten who basically echoed those same sentiments that something needs to be done, something needs to happen now. And so, here you are Friday evening, Connor Stalions officially fired, and I think this is all trending in a place where, what ultimately happens to Michigan, it's not going to end with just the firing of Connor Stalions.
Yeah, I'm just trying to scroll a little bit. I mean, like I said, this it was literally 5 seconds before we hit the live button. Somebody commented right there that Stalions indeed got fired. Look, people jumped all over my balls when I said it wasn't a great look that he got suspended with pay. I didn't give a shit about the with pay. I really didn't. If you've got something going on and somebody gets suspended, that's not awesome. And that's all I was trying to say from the beginning. Now, like Chris has been saying from the beginning of all this, if you do fire him, if you do remove him from his post, that's clearly an indictment that he was doing something very wrong. I mean, it is. There's really no other way to slice it. Yeah, maybe it was sped up or it was shoved or nudged a little bit from the meetings today that reportedly took place between President Ono and Tony Petitti. I don't know. I don't think Jim Harbaugh was technically involved in that, correct? I mean, that was never the report.
None of the reporting indicated it was just a meeting between the commissioner, who, by the way, was going to be
already there. Yes,
for different, but given the current circumstances and what's happening, and the fact that they had a meeting scheduled, it's just I've spent the last 2 weeks trying to be as on the emotional roller coaster, that the same ride that everybody else is on, where you hear something, it doesn't sound good, and then you try to internalize it, rationalize it, try to come up with a reason why it might not be as bad as it sounds, and then you come to a place where you think it's going to be okay, and then something else comes out, and something else comes out. And it's just been a complete, I mean, Jesus Christ, has this not been the longest bye week? I can't remember a bye. It feels like Michigan hasn't played a football game in a month at this point. Like that Michigan State game feels forever ago at this point. But it's really, really unfortunate. And I think I said this on the show before that it sure looks like somebody's personal ambitions could potentially, derail what is expected to be one of the most successful seasons in Michigan football history. It's just this program right now, sure, in terms of wins and losses and the talent on the field, it's in a really great place. But everything surrounding this program is not in a great place. Jim Harbaugh's future at Michigan is now in question. How many other people are going to pay the price? What does this ultimately do to, next year and the impact on the season there? What impact are we going to see on recruiting? I mean, we haven't even seen the full scope of the impact that this is going to have on Michigan, but I just can't recall anything ever in my lifetime as a college football fan that's been anything quite like this. And I just, that to me is a really weird place to be, going into, the week 9 of the football schedule. Like, it never would have anticipated we would be here. And it's just a constant effort of trying to make sense of it all. And we talked about this a little bit before we went live. I'm exhausted with it. I don't, and I can see, some people saying it in the comments, like excited to just talk about football or get back to normal course of business. I don't think that's going to happen for a little while. And there's no way that we can hop on a live and sit here and break down Purdue and break down kind of, offensively, where can Michigan expose them and what can they do Nobody gives a shit about that at this point.
Know.
This is by far and away the biggest story in not just college athletics, but in sports right now.
Yeah.
And for us to ignore it, I think would be irresponsible. And you know what? See, that shit pisses me off, Brandon. I don't think we flip-flop every day. I think what we do is we come on here and we try to give you an honest assessment of what we hear and what we believe is going to take place. And what I've said is that I have certain beliefs about where this is going, but I also acknowledge that as the investigation continues and more comes out, you have to go wherever the evidence leads. And right now, we're all still waiting for the NCAA investigation to be complete. But the fact that Michigan has taken the step of firing Connor Stalions is yet another step toward there being some substantial guilt and something of substance behind what Michigan is being accused of. Those are steps that are not in the right direction. And so it's not flip-flopping, it's evolving and taking in information and processing as it comes. And I think if you're put it this way, if you are still in the same place today that you were the first day you heard about this, then you're part of the problem. You're not taking in information, listening and evolving and trying to make sense of it all. You've just decided that it's bullshit, it's a witch hunt, nothing's going to happen, and that's where you're going to stay. And that's fine, but that's not the type of person I am, and I think that's not what we're trying to present to people that listen.
I'll also defend myself and say, I just said it a little bit ago. I said it was a bad sign that he got suspended the day it happened. Yeah. I just didn't think that was a good, that's not a good look. I understand it. Everybody said, well, it was with pay and this is protocol and he's under investigation. So you just remove him. So he's not a distraction. He's not this, he's not that. I'm like, dude, there's got to be a small reason why you want to suspend the guy, even if you're going to continue paying him. I just felt that from the beginning. I didn't know he was going to pop up on the damn sidelines at CMU in a disguise. I didn't know we were going to learn about the manifesto. And by the way, I believe we can pretty much treat all of that as fact at this point now that he's been shit canned. I mean, like, I feel pretty good about that.
And how long has it been now? CMU still doesn't have an answer as to who it was.
From that. You know
what I mean? Like, can we safely assume now that it was him on the sideline? I mean, again, people didn't want to believe that. They thought it was a stretch as minutes and hours and days go by, and there's still no answer from Mount Pleasant. It just, it feels like what the accusation is out there is true.
I had a couple days where I thought maybe they had found some loopholes and they might skirt by with
Yeah.
Not much more than a slap on the wrist, but then you find out it was deeper than that. It was more games than that. It was more people than that the assistant coaches potentially access stuff they shouldn't have. And then
he's on
then he's on the sideline. I'm like, all right, well, that's different than him just buying tickets for people that aren't being paid by Michigan. Very different. So, yeah, I don't know why is that flip-flopping or is that just learning new information as the investigation goes on? I don't understand.
Yeah, that's what it is. Like when, again, you hear things and anybody who's been following this story, that there's been a steady drip of reports, multiple reports every single day about this. And a lot of it is a lot of the same information regurgitated. A lot of it is rumor. A lot of it is speculation. But over the course of time, at some point, you have to start to look at what's happening. And when somebody gets fired and there's this amount of scrutiny and accusation surrounding the program, and now you have Big Ten head coaches calling for immediate action, saying that they've got evidence. You've got athletic directors calling for immediate action. At some point, you've got to sit back as a Michigan fan and say, okay, this is not trending in the right direction. All of us keep waiting for this magical, the Ryan Day thing. Like I want to talk about that a little bit. This bombshell of a report that came out earlier today that Ryan Day could be behind. Michigan might have some evidence that indicates Ryan Day was behind what initiated this investigation. That presumably his brother's investigative firm was the one that conducted the investigation. Who gives a shit? None of that matters at this point. And if Ohio State initiated it and some investigative firm accessed information illegally, there will be a price to pay for that. But none of that is going to have anything to do with what happens with Michigan now, because the bottom line is whatever evidence the NCAA has, they have it. And this is not a normal court of law where if you gather evidence and you do so illegally or not within the rules, they can throw it out and it can't be used against you. The NCAA can use whatever evidence they have at their feet and determine whatever punishment they want. Same goes for the Big Ten Conference. And so, again, if you're a Michigan fan and you're still sitting back saying witch hunt, nothing's going to happen, thinking that this is all completely innocent, I would challenge you to just open up your mind a little bit and kind of look at what's happening and acknowledge it's not a great look and it's not a great trajectory for the program right now.
I saw somebody just, a random person rebuttal on Twitter just said they were being sarcastic, but it was they were pretending to be Michigan talking. It was like, yeah, we cheated, but you just weren't supposed to find out about it. Like that was them talking to, like, that's a good point. Like if they broke the rules and they're caught breaking the rules, it doesn't really matter if it was Ohio State that initiated, like,
sure. And
if they broke some laws in doing so, they'll be dealt with, but that doesn't change what Michigan did.
Correct.
And that's the part where, yeah, you gotta just kind of look at it, with it's hard though, man. And look, I've come to the conclusion in my own brain that if the exact same things were happening at Michigan State or Ohio State or Notre Dame, I'd be drilling them. I'd be absolutely drilling them.
Are you telling me that if there wasn't some low-level staffer from Michigan State on ECU's sideline for Michigan's home opener,
no doubt,
we wouldn't be blowing our fucking top about it?
Going crazy.
Exactly. And so, again, I think you have to, and it's hard because I think one of the hardest things about it is you've watched both national and local media outlets hammer Michigan for the better part of 2 weeks, and you want to be sort of a voice of, I'm pushing back on this a little bit. There needs to be some pushback. But at the end of the day, again, it's just not trending in the right direction. And I would think in order for Michigan to take the action that they took, for the coaches to say what they said, for the ADs to say what they said, and for this meeting with Tony Petitti and President Ono, it just feels like there's, those guys know more than what you and I know, Brandon, what anybody in this comment section knows. They have seen more. There's more evidence. They've had more access to whatever it is that's out there. So you got to believe that this isn't all based on hearsay, speculation, and rumor.
I don't think I see Denise saying. I think Chris and I are saying the same thing. I'm not saying if at this point. I said if in reference to I still don't really know what's going to happen. I don't know what the punishment's going to be. I'm pretty sure there's going to be one at this point. I can get on board with that thought. like I said, and we can treat a lot of this stuff that Connor Stalions reportedly did as fact now that he's been fired. You don't fire him if he didn't do any of those things. If you've been saying all along he broke no rules, he didn't do this, he didn't do that, that's not him on CMU's sideline. He can do whatever he wants. He can do, like, you're wrong. Just listen. You are wrong because they just fired the guy. Chris said this a week and a half ago. If they fire him, that kind of admits guilt on some level, that he did definitely do something wrong. So
who do I have convicted? I don't have anybody convicted. What I've said is it's not trending in a good direction.
It's definitely not.
And you just had the staffer at the center of the entire investigation get fired.
Yeah.
That's not a good sign.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is, and I've also been the same person, Denise, for the last 2 weeks pounding the table saying due process. Let the investigation, let the NCAA complete its work, that it would be irresponsible for the Big Ten or the NCAA to hand down any sort of punishment without a completed investigation. I have said that repeatedly. I'm a broken record there. So no, I don't have them convicted. But what I'm willing to do is look at the situation and admit it's not great. It's not a great situation. It all looks bad. You would prefer not to have it. And if Ohio State's behind it and Ryan Day and some firm that he's connected with initiated it, fine, that'll be dealt with. But that is a separate issue when compared to what we're talking about. And you're talking about a staff member who's standing on the sideline scouting opponents in person in a fucking wig and wearing glasses with cameras installed in them. This is uncharted territory here. Yeah. This is something that we have not seen in college athletics. And for Michigan to be at the center of it, I'm going to be honest, as somebody who covers the team, as somebody who believes in this team, as somebody who's invested in it as a fan, I'm irritated. I'm upset by it. I'm like offended that I got to spend so much time covering and talking about this bullshit when we can't even talk about the stuff that we really want to talk about, which is 8-0 Big Ten championship, college football playoff run, quarterback who's in the Heisman running. Like, none of that is even relevant right now, given the current story.
Tomorrow's Saturday, and it doesn't even feel like I'm getting ready to cover a game. Like, I was writing like a prediction article, and I was texting you, I was texting Trent, give me your predictions for tomorrow, and I'm like, they're playing tomorrow. Like, I don't even. It just feels all pretty mundane right now. Are you reading Andrew's comment? Because it's
and I'm reading Eric Martin's comment where yes, it has not been confirmed it was him at the game. Cool. Yes, it has not been confirmed. So if you want to live in that world where it was just some mystery man, some random individual who happened to show up with a clipboard, sunglasses, a hat, and coaching attire, and yet nobody affiliated with the program knows who that was, knows where he came from. Like, or is not saying it in that world. If you want to live in that world, live in that world.
Yeah.
That's
I just okay. I mean, you're not wrong, Johnny. You're not. But what does it mean then? Why would they fire him if he didn't do something wrong? That would make zero sense. It was kind of like what I said earlier. Why would you suspend him if he didn't do anything wrong? I've been on that train from day one. I understand he was still getting paid, and at that point we didn't know a lot of this shit. But I still said, like, that looks bad. Like, his name of 100+ people affiliated with the program popped up in day 2 of this thing, and before the sun went down, he was suspended. It's not good. It's not good. I don't care if he's getting paid $1 million a day. That's not good. And now he's fired. And I would be willing to bet it's not for no reason. I just don't. Maybe I'm missing a part in my brain that most fans have. I don't get it. Like, I want Michigan to win every game by 1,000. But
yes. Again, Nick, I saw a scenario where Stalions could be back on the staff. And then I saw screenshots and video of him presumably standing on the sideline during the Michigan State game. I mean, again, like, I get that's speculation at this point. I understand it. It hasn't been 100% confirmed that it's him. I believe with every fiber of my being that is Connor Stalions on the sideline. And I think if you're 100% convinced that it's not, there's nothing I can do to convince you. Sure, it could have been me, but I wasn't in East Lansing, Travis. That's the difference. I wasn't in East Lansing. Okay, so am I being clear enough, Travis? Listen, let me try to be clear here. There's speculation that Connor Stalions was on the sideline. I'm telling you, I was not in East Lansing that night. Does that make sense? Like, are we reading the tea leaves?
Did someone
I
say
wasn't
it was
there.
You? Oh, I could have been. Okay, I didn't see that comment. Thank you, Megan. Yes, me and Chris are just covering the info, but I will say this is not a new thing. I've said it before. I'll say it. I lost thousands of followers because I didn't want Jim Harbaugh anymore after 2020. Right? And that was, dude. The way people talk to me, you would have thought I murdered his entire family.
Attitude. This is what's wrong with the world. Yada yada yada. Okay.
It's
I mean, we should just be upbeat and excited about the ass whooping that's about to happen this weekend against Purdue. I guess that's where we should be. You know, I mean, forgive me for being exhausted and frustrated with the program being at the center of this controversy.
Scott, then why hasn't Jim McElwain said, that's our boy, Tony? It's fucking simple, dude. So simple. Do you understand that there's a huge missing piece when it comes to, like, Central's got that guy? No, they don't.
Terrible argument.
They don't,
dude.
You
think if Central staff, if Central had a guy like that the people at Central would know, hey, we've got a guy that looks just like that.
So, like,
literally in 10 minutes, you could come out and say, that's who it is.
Scott.
And they haven't done it. Look at the picks. Look at the staff picks. Who gives a shit? Who cares?
Pull up their driver's license and give me their. I don't care. Jim McElwain would have squashed that shit in 4 seconds after the game. It hasn't happened.
Condescending to your fans. Okay, Denise. What I'm in the mood for an argument tonight. I'm in the mood for a fight because I'm tired of the bullshit.
I got time today.
At some point in time, you guys out there got to wake up and take the information for what it's worth. Just admit that it's not good and it's not headed in a good place. At least if you can do that, we can have a good conversation. But you can't even, some of you guys can't even get in there. You want to hang on the witch hunt. You want to hang on the Ryan Day bullshit, how the information was acquired. That's an entirely different conversation, and I'm not willing to have it tonight. You should demand more from the program that you love.
That's the point.
You should demand more from the program that you spend money on and you invest your weekends in, and we all invest time and money into. We should demand more. And this is a complete shit show. And I hate to break it to you, but Michigan is not completely innocent in that. They hold some responsibility for what's happening as well. So it's at least I feel my obligation to acknowledge that so that I'm not one of the morons out there that's just parroting, all these different irrelevant talking points and towing the company line. Michigan owns a part of that. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a track record now of hiring questionable individuals. Let's talk about Matt Weiss. Let's talk about Shemi Schembeckler. Let's talk about Connor Stalions. Let's talk about the individual who apparently was fired because he's a child predator. Didn't even know that happened until the video came out yesterday.
Yep.
Why don't we talk about that stuff? Because if it was happening at Ohio State, you would want to talk about it. If it was happening at Michigan State, you would want to talk about it. But because it's at Michigan, you want to deflect and defend and push it somewhere else. And at some point in time, if you can't get on board, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going to sit up here and blow smoke up your ass and say that everything's great. Let's talk about the ass beating coming to Purdue. Like, that's not the story right now, and that's not the topic.
Yeah. And look, Chris is I'm not going to call him a slap, but close.
I am as slappy
former
as a
slap
because I'm angry, Matt. I'm angry. That's why I'm yelling. Put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, it was, yes, steadfast. Right, we are exhausted. We talked about it before we went on.
There you go, Travis. See, you're not even aware of that. That's how good everybody was at covering that one up. Didn't even know that you had a staffer fired for being a child predator. Caught in maybe in a Walmart buying liquor for a 13-year-old girl. Yeah, go look at that story.
It's all on video. Like we're not projecting.
That's not rumor. That's not rumor. That's not speculation. Dude's on video with a bottle of liquor. He's been identified as a member of the staff. He's no longer there.
Yeah.
Child predator.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know anything about it till yesterday when the video was out on social media. Apparently, some people in the Michigan market did know about it much earlier and decided to do nothing with it. Look, Chris and I had a discussion about this. It's gross. It's like a gross area to even have to like talk about. I would never consider, like, if you chose not to cover it. If we would have chosen not to, like, if we had known about it a month ago and chose not to like write a front page article about it, it would have been not out of anything to do with covering up or trying to, protect that guy or something. I don't. It's a very, I don't know, Chris. I don't even know if I know how to explain it really, Chris. But it's a very weird. I don't know, dude. I feel super gross even talking about that kind of stuff. It's just a strange, strange slippery slope. And because like we've covered controversial stuff before. We covered Mozzie Smith's gun stuff. We covered the Dr. Anderson stuff more than probably anybody. I mean,
we had survivors on the show and interviewed them who were directly impacted by Robert Anderson. I mean, it's not
I guess I'll say this.
We avoid.
I'll say this. It would have depended on how much I knew about it, how I got the information, who told me what I was supposed to do with it. Because if all I had just seen was the video, like I did yesterday, I didn't know who that guy was. First of all, I didn't know who he was. I didn't even know he was on staff. I had seen like a picture of him, I think maybe once upon a time with another recruiting staffer or something on maybe Instagram or Michigan's Twitter account. I'm not sure, but I had no idea who he was. I didn't know he worked with Michigan. And I didn't know that he wasn't there anymore. I mean, these are just things that I would have felt really uncomfortable like throwing around given the situation and the gravity of what was going on. But it doesn't erase the fact that Chris just rattled off 4 or 5 names of people that apparently should have had nothing to do with Michigan football. And like they weren't vetted or like they were, I don't know. It does seem like there's a lot of bullshit going on.
Okay, the FBI being involved, and these are all. I'm not linking these all together as if they have to do with what Connor Stalions is apparently guilty.
No, they're all separate.
But that's almost worse. Like you've got Matt Weiss being investigated by the FBI. You hire and fire Shemi Schembechler within a week after finding out the dude's borderline Nazi because nobody took the time to do a background check on this guy because his last name happened to be Schembechler. You have Connor Stalions around the program, who might be one of the greatest sign-stealing masterminds of our time. and he ultimately gets fired and could be responsible for why the program isn't able to reach its goals. You've got a low-level staffer who's fired for being a child predator, essentially. So when you look at all of these things, it just speaks to a pattern of, how do I want to say it? I don't know what the vetting process is like at Michigan. And they hire a lot of good people who turn out to be good people. But I also don't see a lot of this shit happening at other programs this frequent. I mean, everything I just named has been over like the last 8 or 9 months.
Yeah.
We're not talking about over the course of 5 years. This has not been a solid year for a team who's coming off of a 13-win season, a Big Ten championship, a spot in the college football playoff, and then it starts with Jim Harbaugh interviewing with the Vikings, the Matt Weiss thing, the Shemi Schembechler thing, Connor Stalions thing, the pedophile thing. Like, it's just not a good place to be.
Yeah.
And as a fan, I'm irritated by it.
Travis,
I'm irritated by it.
Travis, I would like to go play Madden too. I really would. I was talking to Chris. I texted Chris like way earlier in the day today, and I'm like, dude, I can't scroll past one tweet without seeing somebody talking about this stuff, and I don't want to do it anymore. And then right before we go live, he's fired. So now it's like it's the only news, and it's the only thing to talk about. I understand they are playing a game tomorrow, but it doesn't feel like it. And oh, by the way, they're favored by like 34, so it's not even going to be a game. That's beside the point, but it just, all this stuff has piled on. Chris is absolutely right. We would not be doing our jobs if we didn't cover this stuff, which is at the forefront of the team that we cover, let alone where it's at on a national scale. I mean, dude, you turn on Cowherd, you turn on First Take, you turn on Rich Eisen, you turn on Speak, any one of these talking head shows across any one of the major networks, and this is a segment. So, like, for Chris and I, who cover Michigan and Michigan only, to not talk about what happened right before we went live, I mean, we do. Like, it's it's not even an option. I don't want to do it.
You want to talk about the Purdue game? Fine, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how their head coach yesterday sat on a panel and said, yeah, we know Michigan's cheating. We have evidence of that. You want to talk about that? And by the way, can I just push back on that a little bit? Even if Stalions himself was in the building or had somebody in the building, they weren't scouting Purdue. Don't give yourself too much credit there if you're a Boilermaker. You weren't there to get intel on the Boilermakers.
Yeah, apparently it's been said now that 5 games, I think, that Purdue was involved in. I'd be very interested.
Ohio State.
Yeah, I obviously would want to hear who the opponent was. Whatever. Regardless, we had a couple super chats. I did want to throw them up. We kind of got lost in the wash there real quick, but yes, he was at CMU. Only thing we can hope for is that Harbaugh could prove he had no idea. I think that's unlikely as well.
What do you think the percentages of people that still don't believe that was him on the sideline? Do you think it's over 50%?
I think it's like half, which is fucking bananas.
Half. Yeah.
I mean, it's probably
where do you stand? Are you pretty certain?
Dude, I was certain it was him the first time I saw the picture. I told you. I don't know if it's because I can draw, or I thought about this with you too, Chris. We have a way of looking at things that maybe others do. Dude, I'm like, that's him. That's him. The first time I saw the picture, I'm like, what the fuck is he doing there? Why is he doing that?
Yeah.
It was a no doubt in my head. And then again, the point I've mentioned 6 times now, everybody take notes again. When Jim McElwain called him sign stealer guy during his post-game press conference and then couldn't identify him, I'm like, yeah, that's him. So maybe I was at like 96% when I saw the photo, and it went immediately to 100 when Jim McElwain addressed him like that.
And Jeremy, I'm in agreement with you. I believe he was there, but I also don't believe there's a chance that Jim Harbaugh would have known and signed off on that.
That part I would get on board with.
Not a chance.
That part I could get on board with. But to say that Harbaugh has been
just TFG for fucking ever on this show.
But yeah. To say that Harbaugh had no idea, I don't think I can get there. About some of this stuff.
You mean about overall? Yes.
People going to games, not his staff, not his paid people, but I don't know how I can. I mean, it's just like what we've referenced many times before. One of the quotes by Bo Schembechler that Jim Harbaugh lives his life by. If you're the head coach, you're either too stupid or you're not, you can't not know shit like that about your program. Harbaugh used to sing that stuff from the rafters, man.
Bo Schembechler operated in a much different time the way the world was and the way college football world was. And Bo Schembechler, to have an assistant do what Stalions was doing, would have been so much more obvious back then than it would be today. Like, we've talked about.
By the way,
everybody has electronics. Everybody has a recording device. Like, you can. It's not that hard to do shit like this.
You know what else it would have been back then? Legal. So there's that. Well, there's that. Is it possible that Connor Stalions was completely rogue and gets the brunt of the punishment? Perhaps a lot of the coaching staff didn't know just how crazy he was. I do think that's possible.
Possible, yeah, absolutely.
I still think that people are going to get in trouble because I think it's one of these things, dude. Like, if I see another clip of him talking to a coach and then making a call, I'm gonna fucking go nuts because that's not illegal. Like,
that's
not even
evidence. Correct.
It's nothing. Now, coupled with everything else, I understand. It's not much of a reach to say what he's saying at those moments. But you could take a clip of every team, of every sideline, of every game, and find examples that look exactly like that every week. So, like, I just don't know how much people might. I really don't know how much the staff knew.
See, and Bill, you from the Facebook page, you bring up a phenomenal point here. If you are going to do this shit and you're going to go to these links to scout, advanced scouting, even be there on the sideline, how are you so terrible at covering your tracks? How are you so oblivious that you're purchasing things in your own name? Like, this was a guy who was so detailed in his manifesto that maybe he didn't have enough time to think through the implications of what he was actually doing in the real world and how easy it would be to figure out. That's the part that's just so hard to believe. And that's why I think it's real interesting that at some point in the near future, I would love to hear from Connor Stalions. Are we going to get the true and accurate story? I'm not sure. But at this point, what has he got to lose? His name has already been essentially ruined in the sports world. Can't see any sort of scenario where he gets a job, at least with another college football team in the near future anyway. I would like to hear from him. I would like to hear what the thought process was and how he thought he was going to get away with this. Did he think what he was doing was even illegal? Was he just oblivious to the rules? Did he know he was breaking the rules? And if he knew he was breaking the rules, how didn't he cover his tracks better? But even that, the overarching theme to that is he still fucked up. And he still ended up getting fired, and he still ended up putting the program in a terrible spot. And it doesn't matter who found it out, who brought it to the NCAA. That's where we're at now.
Okay, I've got a good question that I just saw on Twitter. It was actually from somebody that I follow. Who was it? Oh, Ryan Armani. I go on with him and Braylon Edwards occasionally. Whatever, no big deal. But he asked a legitimate question. It's kind of connecting like the football side to all of this bullshit. But I think it's a good question now with Stalions fired. With all this stuff out there, with all the people saying, "Oh, Michigan's been stealing signs," we knew about it. Apparently, they didn't do any. That's also a weird thing. They say they've known about this for so long, but yet they didn't change. And I don't know. Whatever. That's another discussion for another day. Chris, I'm curious to see what you think. How much, if any, advantage will Michigan have for the remaining 4 games? Because if they go out this weekend and they beat Purdue 50-0, which I think is very possible and probably almost likely, no one's going to give a shit because Purdue's trash. But then you've got Penn State, Maryland, who's played well this year, and obviously Ohio State. If Michigan can run the gauntlet and finish the season 12-0, what will people be saying at this point? How much advantage has already been gained, even though Stalions is now fired and there's nobody scouting anymore? And they're obviously at this point, if you believe what's happened, intel has already been gathered. What's been done with it? Who has seen it? How has it been implemented? And will it be able to be utilized without Stalions being there anymore? I think that's a very legitimate question and discussion with these last 4 games.
You're asking what advantage do they still have?
Yeah. I mean, what can people say at this point if Michigan goes to Happy Valley and wins 48-12?
I would have a hard time believing that all of the intel he gathered and knowledge he had has been lost upon his departure.
Completely lost. I would agree with that. I would agree with
that there are, people on staff who are still aware of the intel he was bringing, not maybe necessarily aware of how he was getting it, but no, dude, regardless of what they do or don't have, the advantage at this point, I don't know. I don't think there's any way to say specifically what kind of advantage they have. The only thing we can guarantee from here on out is that this team's going to be labeled as cheaters, no matter what happens. And the best thing you can possibly do is to win it all, because anything short of that is going to be further fire to the narrative that, see, you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it without the guy who knew how to steal signs for you. You couldn't do it without the guy who could read the defense for you. Michigan just has to go out and win it all. They have already, the label is there. It's not going away this year. Hell, it's probably not going away next year. This might be something that hangs around the program for a little while.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, how long ago was the deflated footballs thing for the Patriots? It still gets half-ass brought up occasionally whenever somebody jokes about some stuff like that, and Tom Brady hasn't been there in a really long time and hasn't it sucks that that's true, but this is clearly a much bigger undertaking than deflating some footballs. Yeah. I don't know what the answer to that is. I'm curious. I think Michigan's going to absolutely throttle Purdue tomorrow. It's one of my predictions that maybe we'll get into. Maybe we won't. We're already 40 minutes into the show. We haven't done any of our normal segments, but I mean,
I'm curious. We've obviously said a lot about how we feel about it, and I want to give fans the opportunity to chime in with, I'm curious. Obviously, as a fan and somebody who covers a team, I'm frustrated by all of this. And a lot of my frustration at this point is directed at Michigan because I feel like a lot of this is self-inflicted and unnecessary. That's where I'm at. But as a fan, you've spent 2 weeks digesting all this bullshit, reading the same things we're reading, seeing the same reports we're seeing. Where do you stand on it as a Michigan football fan? What do you think about where things currently stand with this program? And I'll give you time to put it in, and we can put it up and we can read them. I'm curious because I feel so strongly about it, and it's clear that there are people out there that have an entirely different outlook on what all of this is and what it means.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go ahead and say that this is not good publicity.
No.
I think Tyler's obviously
Normally,
there.
in most cases, I would agree,
but
Tyler. Not here.
I'm gonna go ahead and disagree. A couple questions while you're mulling over what Chris just posed to you guys. It was not confirmed that it was the Stalions on the CMU sidelines, but it's the easiest thing in the world to disprove if you're anybody at CMU. The guy, if it's not Stalions, where's the guy? Just be like, oh yeah, hey, sorry, guy, big miscommunication. Sorry, guys, that's me.
And you know what? Another important question to ask is, where was Connor Stalions that night? Where was he?
Yeah, ask him.
Ask that question. Where was Connor Stalions the night of that game? Friday.
I'm sure he wasn't laying in a hole under a rock somewhere. There's got to be some people out there who know where he was at.
What was he doing?
What was he doing?
I don't know.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, you can see some of the comments coming in. Disappointed. That's the word. I mean, it's such a high level of disappointment.
This makes me, this makes me feel a little less crazy here. I'm glad that other people are seeing this. I'm embarrassed. I'm disappointed. I feel like if you're being honest with yourself and you're an honest Michigan fan, that's how you feel, regardless of how you feel about how it's been covered or the national media. This is just a shitty place to be. Yeah.
Scott, Ryan, Sparty friend just texted Ballas saying something new is coming out, and now there's no way Harbaugh contract's extension gets signed. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that they had to change their angle over there. They never do. They never do that. Fucking clowns. Anyway, yeah, it's I don't know, man. It's just it's been a mess in every sense of the word. It's been.
So wait, can you just to make sure I heard that clearly? So there's more coming out tomorrow, Saturday.
I don't know if it said tomorrow. I think it just said coming out soon. I don't know if it said tomorrow. But
so there's more coming out, and it's essentially going to lead to Harbaugh not getting his extension.
Apparently,
right? That's what's being reported.
So, something new is coming out, and now there's no way. Yeah, it didn't say a timeline, but yeah, I mean, to say
who's reporting that?
Ballas, Mr. Chris Ballas. I mean, to think that this is done now, that Connor Stalions is fired, it's not. It's just more stuff is going to keep coming out. Maybe now he'll speak. I saw somebody say that earlier, like his gag order is now gone. He can say whatever the hell he wants at this point. I don't think he will.
Make my public plea, Connor Stalions, I'm ready and willing to film it, listen to you, do the interview, like. Hit me up. Let me know. Let's tell your story. I feel like people want it. There's not many people across the country that I think could hop on and sit down and do an interview, and there would be more people tuned in right now. Everybody wants to know what this dude was up to.
All right, this isn't the worst question. It's coming from the place that it's coming from the group of people that we yelled at earlier, I think. But it's actually,
I'll put that more on me.
Okay, fine, fair. I wasn't going to do that, so okay.
There's only so much I can take, Brandon.
But this isn't the worst question in the world, because like I said, there was a couple day stretch where I felt like this might actually be the case. Mark Bennett's question: do we agree that unless Stalions was at a game personally or another paid staffer or coach was there, that no rules have been broken? It's tough.
Let me digest that for a little bit.
Yeah. So I'll talk first.
Well, I was just going to say,
go ahead.
I think Brandon and I would both be lying to you if we tried to come across as experts when it comes to NCAA regulations and what the bylaws say specifically. But based on what we've read and based on the way you've structured your questions or your question, I would say I would agree. I would agree that if he was not at a game in person and nobody on Michigan's staff was there present, I'm not sure that any rule was broken. Now, having said that, the fact that Connor Stalions was fired half an hour ago, whenever the actual firing took place, is not a good sign. The fact that it looks like he may have been on the sideline in person for Michigan State, Central Michigan, lends some credibility to that. So again, you're just trying to piece these things together.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I was going to say the exact same thing. If you believe the way you worded it, yeah, that's where I was when I said I think they may have found some weird loopholes here where nobody paid went, and they can do whatever the hell they want. And then if they put that film in a public domain, cool.
Correct.
There was a little bit of a gray area since Connor Stalions appeared to be the one buying the tickets, but to my knowledge, the bylaw didn't say anything about that. You can't just say like, well, that's what we meant. You can't do that with written bylaws and rules. So that's where that was a little bit of a gray area. But I think it's all a moot point because I'm 100% sure that was Connor Stalions at CMU. So I guess, Mark, to answer your question, the way you exactly have it worded, yes, I would agree. But I don't agree because that's not what I believe. That's just not what I think. It's not what I think happened. So I don't know if that's,
but it's a fair question. And I think it's one that Brandon and I have talked about on the podcast before. I specifically remember saying when we were having a conversation, whether it was Wednesday or Monday, that I'm not even sure that he broke a rule at that point. Yeah. But then the stuff of him on the sidelines comes out, and then more leaks.
Bonzo, it does say that it has to be someone paid by the school. Otherwise, like, what would keep? So Bonzo, basically, you could go to the game, record stuff with your phone, upload it to YouTube, and that would be all those people did. That's again, the fact that Stalions appears to have bought the tickets is a muddy area. I'm not saying it's not, but there's nowhere in the bylaws that say that you can't do that. It's about the exact body of who is at those games. And if it's not a person paid by Michigan, that's why I thought they may have found some loophole. Now, there is in courts of law, there are some things that it's essentially, and that's again, it comes back to like, this isn't a crime against humanity. This isn't technically a legal action where someone's going to go to jail. It's an NCAA thing. So I don't know how it works, because if you pay somebody to do some dirt in the real world, some illegal shit, you're absolutely in trouble.
Yeah, like Connor Stalions is not going to jail over this.
Right. That's not what this is, though. So because the bylaws don't specifically address that, you can't just say, well, that's what they meant to write. Well, they didn't write it. So that's where it would be very specific loophole. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it.
Mark Bennett, who asked the previous question, yes, I saw that as well, that there is a bylaw where you can pay a third-party service to go in. And so again, like, yeah, there's layers to this, but you also, the fact that Connor Stalions was fired, the whole thing about loophole, working within the regulations and just outsmarting the system, the fact that he got fired, I think maybe throws a wrench into that. And again, you go back to the
CMU thing,
and it just, it continues to head towards a place that looks like he was acting well beyond, loopholes and cleverly working within regulations.
Briley, I'm not. Who was hacking? I think. Are you mixing up
That's the accusation that
Matt Weiss,
the firm that Ryan Day hired.
Oh, that from the
hacked into Michigan's electronics, got some dirt on him, which may be the case. Could be a federal crime, and somebody on that side could absolutely do time for that. But again, that's not going to stop any punishment being had. Like, the Big Ten and the NCAA aren't going to look at evidence that says Michigan's been cheating and this has been going on with Connor Stalions and say, but you know what? The way that they got that evidence just isn't right. So we're not going to do shit about it. Like, that's not going to happen. The other Big Ten coaches around the league aren't going to let that happen. The ADs aren't going to let that happen.
Jody, amen to you. I don't know how any fan doesn't feel just like that. I don't know about Harbaugh getting fired. I don't know if it'll get to that point. But everything else, that's spot on. Fans should feel sick to your stomach. The season might be lost. Wins might be vacated. I don't know if it's going to go that route, but it's on the table. I would think you're crazy if you say, no, none of that's going to happen. How do you know? I think it's possible some of those things might happen. The whole program looks terrible right now. It's the only thing anybody's talking about.
There are people out there that saw that report from On3 about the whole Ryan Day thing, and that people are looking into where the information came from and took that as this whole thing's about to be flipped, where Michigan gets off and the hammer gets dropped on Ohio State instead. That is living in a land of delusion that, like, I can't even fathom.
So, Jody, I'm shocked that everybody doesn't feel somewhat of what you're saying right there. I don't know if Harbaugh will be fired. I think it's possible. I do think it's possible. I don't know if it will happen. There might be some pushback. You know, there's going to be windows. If Michigan gets slapped with an official notice of allegations at some point, then Michigan has 90 days to put its shit together. And so, like, this isn't going to be a quick thing. And Harbaugh might ride off into the sunset and take an NFL job or just do something.
I was just
like, there's a ton of options here at this point, ways that this could play out. But your overall feeling.
Correct.
I appreciate that.
And
that's not
out of the realm of possibility to think that Michigan could sit back, look at whatever evidence they've been presented with and say, look, man, like you've used the last 2 or 3 seasons to explore the NFL. Now we've got all this shit going on with like coaches and, just there's too much here. And the program is too valuable to continue to go down this road. And whether or not Harbaugh was directly involved, I think it goes back to what we said earlier. At the end of the day, as head coach of the football program, it is your job to know that those things are going on, especially when they're going on at that level. It just becomes harder and harder to believe that nobody within that program had any idea of how Stalions was so good at what he was doing.
Yeah, a couple things I want to pull up here. This one, because it made me laugh. I like the Spanglish at the end. I keep seeing Stalions got fired for not cooperating with any internal investigatos. I'm pretty sure that was a typo, but I love it. Thank you, Michael Courtney, for that. And then Lucius, I literally just said, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, those words just came out of my mouth. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm saying it, listen, loudly, clearly. I don't know what's going to happen. Jim Harbaugh could be fired. I think it's possible. He could keep his job and play out the remainder of his contract. I think that's possible. He could leave for the NFL. I think that's possible. He could just up and dip because he's had enough of all this shit, which has been clear from the beginning of the year. He's been taking shots at the NCAA all year long. I don't know which one of those is going to happen, but I think they're all realistic and they're all on the table. Cool? Like, are we good? Not being negative, bro. This is what's fucking happening. Like, what's negative? Like, this is happening. It's real life. It's going on right now. Michigan's number 3 in the country. They're playing a game tomorrow. No one cares.
It's not what's happening that's negative. It's our attitude towards it that's negative. That's the problem, Brandon. We have to change our perception on it. And if we change our perception, we'll change our reality. And then we can join in with the others who can get out the pitchforks and scream witch hunt and which I have tried to be that guy for a bulk of the week. I have done my very best to defend Michigan, and it's getting harder and harder by the day to do.
Hey, Douglas, calmer than you are. Calmer than you are.
You really want to have a calm off?
Calmer than you are. So that's from The Big Lebowski. You know that movie, right, Chris? Calmer than you are.
I live The Big Lebowski.
Calmer than you are. I don't know. Should we do a couple predictions?
A lot of ins and outs and what have yous, and
should we finish with my 5 predictions? So at least that way you can call me. You can take some of the emotion out on me. Maybe.
Does anybody give a shit about? Let's ask the fans. Does
anybody? People have asked.
You care about game predictions for tomorrow? If you care about it, let's talk about it.
Calmer than you are, Douglas.
Yeah,
He's laughing. Look,
we should try to do an entire podcast on this topic, but just talk this way. I'm not feeling very great about where things are right now, but I'm remaining optimistic.
Just do Bob Ross the whole time. Look, I'm just gonna put a cute little tree over here.
What did he say? He said, what did he say? He said, that's the thing about the darkness. Sometimes you need the darkness to appreciate the light.
We are seeing a lot of my dad wants it. My dad has spoken.
Well, I suppose if Dad wants predictions, then we should probably move to predictions.
There's quite a few people saying, yeah.
I'm going to do all predictions in this voice.
Just like this.
Because listen, I don't want to get mad at you folks. I don't want to.
I don't either.
I don't want to scream and yell and act like a buffoon up here. That's not what I want to do. But you also have to understand that this is something that I follow. Hold on. This is something that I've been following every hour of every day because it's part of my job. Every report that comes out, I read. Everything that's said, I read. I have to see what's going on so that I'm in the know, so that when I go and publish an article, that I'm giving the most accurate and up-to-date information that I can possibly give. So when I sit here and try to explain my thoughts and relay that, yes, I do need a hug, and relay that, I just don't take kindly to people putting words in my mouth or saying that I'm saying this or saying that when I know exactly what it is I'm saying. I'm saying that I fully believe that this investigation needs to be complete before any serious punishment is levied by the Big Ten or the NCAA. But what I'm also saying at the same time is that this is not a good look for Michigan. It's not trending in a direction that any of us would have hoped. And the firing of Connor Stalions only adds to that. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Mark must have watched that video of Ryan Day and Brian Hartline last year. He's fired up right now, huh?
What's
fired
that?
Up. He must have watched that video from Ryan Day and Brian Hartline in the gym, the pep rally last year.
What happens in the dark will be brought to light. Wow, that certainly reared its head here in Ann Arbor.
Mark, you don't believe that. Stop, dude. Come on, man.
I didn't even realize he was in Ohio State. Kick his ass. I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear from folks like that tonight.
He doesn't believe that. No one believes
he
that.
Doesn't believe it.
Ryan Day doesn't believe that. Kyle McCord doesn't believe that. Nobody believes that over there.
They got a tough team.
We're tough.
It's Ohio against the world.
You know when you have to announce out loud to everybody that you are something, you're not that thing.
Yeah. It's like saying, I'm good in bed. I mean, that's a pretty big red flag.
I'm really good.
I'm a great drawer. I can draw greatly.
Those are things that other people tell you. You don't have to say them about yourself loudly.
When you have to scream about how good Nickelback is.
Whoa.
You know what I mean?
Whoa.
Like it's a sign.
60 million albums, dude. I'll say it just like Bob Ross every time. Every time. All right. Call me dumb, call me smart, Chris, and we'll get the hell out of here with some score predictions, and we'll go to bed. All right. Risen Gates. Sorry. Number 1, Michigan will rush for 250 plus yards. By the way, they have not done that this year. They rushed for 249 at Nebraska. That is the high water mark on the season. But tomorrow, 250 plus against Purdue.
I'm going to say no, because I think I saw what you put out in kind of your thought that it's going to be ground and pound and punishment and all that. And yeah, I think there's going to be some truth to that. But let's not forget, we got a legitimate Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback. I think he's going to sling the ball around the fucking field. I think we're going to see a big evening from one Mr. JJ McCarthy. So I'm going to take the I'm not going to take the under. I'm just going to call you dumb. You're
calling me dumb. All right, I'll take it. It's just one of those things where they're supremely better than Purdue. They're much more physical. They're going to be able to run the ball. But your point is valid. I mean, JJ is doing much more through the air this year. He is now the Heisman front runner. Maybe there's a candidacy going on for that a little bit at this point. But it just seems like, man, they did it so often last year, that I'm surprised they haven't done it once through 8 games. They haven't eclipsed 250 yards. So whatever, I'll throw it out there. Number 2, Will Johnson will intercept a pass. He picked off Purdue twice as a true freshman in the Big Ten championship game. He gets another one tomorrow.
Yeah, I would say it's a pretty safe bet. I mean, I
Okay.
might even throw Mike Sainer still in there since he's always at the right place, right time. If I had to put
Facts.
money on one or the other, I'd go Sainer still. But I'm never going to bet against Will Johnson, so I'll call you smart there. Reluctantly.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. Like picking a guy to get a pick is hard to do. I mean, you try to look at the way the game's going to play out. Expect Michigan to be up. Expect Purdue to have to throw it. It's I think the weather's supposed to cooperate, but I don't know. I just think he did it twice against Purdue. He's obviously a confident kid. Regardless, he's supremely confident without thinking back to like, damn, I picked these guys off twice as a freshman in the Big Ten title game. I'm gonna go get another one. I just think he's going to. So we'll see
and
how
they're
that
gonna play really fucking angry tomorrow night.
Absolutely.
Gonna play very, very angry.
Number 3, Colston Loveland will score again. It took 6 weeks for him to find the end zone, but now he's had 4 touchdowns over the last 3 games. JJ loves him. He's a talent. He's a future NFL player. Colston Loveland scores again.
Yeah, I mean, if JJ's out there dealing, I got to believe that Colston Loveland's going to be part of that equation. I could certainly see him getting in the end zone. Saw a question out there, what's with James Yoder and Zach Smith? Is that the guy's name?
Yeah.
They're both dinks and assholes, and they're irrelevant. So why
Fair.
anybody would pay attention to anything they're saying is beyond me.
Yep, that's a fair assessment.
That's right, Moose. He's a bum.
Colston Loveland's he's just so good, and we talked about it
in this fucking market. A lot of bums.
Grant Newsom talked about it early in the year. Was kind of slow playing Loveland a little bit. Didn't want to burn him out. Didn't want to get him hurt like he saw with Schoonmaker last year. Now he's being unleashed. 2 touchdowns against Michigan State, 1 in each of the games previous. He's going to find pay dirt again tomorrow. Number 4. This will be Michigan's largest margin of victory as of right now. It's 49 against Michigan State in East Lansing. I think it's getting uglier than that in Ann Arbor tomorrow against Purdue. We haven't given our predictions yet. This will be a hint at that, but I think they win by more than 49 points tomorrow.
I got to stay true to my my score prediction here, so I am going to say smart. It is going to be their biggest win of the season.
We will discuss that a little bit more as we get ready to close the show out and give our actual score predictions, but I think it's going to get ugly. And number 5, take this how you want, right? We talked about Ryan Walters, Purdue head coach. Yeah, it's not even an allegation. We know they did it. I mean, he's talking slick. That's not usually advised when your team is trash compared to your opponent, but he did it. We've seen Jim Harbaugh get pretty testy during the old handshake line before. He's done it multiple times, did it in the pros, has done it with Pete Carroll when he was at Stanford. I mean, he does that occasionally. I actually think it's going to be very smooth and very cordial tomorrow. He's going to do his talking on the field. They're going to whoop Purdue's ass, and he's not going to add any fuel to the fire that he's bothered by all this stuff going on. I could be way off, or that might be exactly how it goes. How do you see it going, Chris?
I know this is partially because I'm petty as fuck, but if I'm Jim Harbaugh, once the clock hits 0, I'm walking to the tunnel. I'm not even fucking
really
going.
No handshake.
To meet that clown, first-year coach, talking big about how Michigan's got people in the stands scouting their games. Like, fuck that. I got no time for this guy. We're going to beat you. I'll give you my score prediction. It's going to be convincing. Get the hell out of our stadium. Go back to Indiana.
That's not far-fetched. Like I said, Jim Harbaugh's done this kind of stuff before. There's been some different reasons for motivation, I think, before. Like when he did it with it was Jim Schwartz and the Lions. It was like a big comeback win, so he was super fired up at the way it happened. Obviously, Pete Carroll, he was like a 40-point underdog or something. It was insane. Yeah, the what's your deal thing so he's got a track record of being a little bit spicy at the handshake, but I think because if he acts out, it's just going to be turned into something.
That's why you don't act out. You don't do shit.
I'm curious. I normally don't care about that kind of stuff.
Just went on record and called me a fucking cheater.
I know, man. That's why
out of my stadium.
That's why I gravitated towards. I normally don't care. I don't care about that post game handshake, but the fact that
one on November 25th, though.
Well,
if you're going to throw haymakers, that's the time.
The fact that Walters is talking like he is, all the stuff swirling around, I feel like there's going to be some message. I don't know what it's going to be. If he goes over there calmly, the nicest handshake you've ever seen. I think that's saying something. If he leaves, I think that's saying something.
That's the most likely scenario, is that it's standard procedure, standard course of business, shake hands, move on with your thing. But like I said, I'm petty. That's not how I operate. I care for what Walters had to say.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. There are my 5 specific predictions for the game tomorrow. Chris, if you would like to get us going, how do you think this one's going to look on the scoreboard? We both said it's going to be ugly. I think the spread is now 31.5. I'll pull it up as you're talking just to make sure somebody will have it. I'm sure.
I believe it's
32.5. Okay.
Yeah, 32.5 last I checked. I do think it's going to be Michigan's most convincing win of the season. I don't think Purdue scores a single point. I think Michigan gets out of there with a comfortable 56-0 win. But, depending on how the people feel in the building over on the Michigan sideline, I could honestly see that going up to 63-0. So I'll go 56-0, but 63-0 is a very, very real possibility. This team, listen, they have had to sit back for 2 weeks and listen to their every single accomplishment they've had over the last 2 years be called into question, be called cheaters, be called for their season to end prematurely. There is no response that this team can have other than to go out Saturday night in primetime on NBC and beat the shit out of Purdue and make a statement. So I'm going to push it up to 63-0.
We are in almost the exact same wheelhouse. I said 59. I see a bunch of touchdowns and 1 field goal sprinkled in there somewhere, and that's how it looks. 59-0. I don't know if you remember this clip. I know you've seen it, Chris. Vanderbilt got a decent win a couple years back, and some lineman got all spicy, and they were playing Bama the next week. He's like, "You go know when you," and he's got a whatever. The way he talks was kind of funny. And then they lost 59-0 the following week. That's what I see. 59-0. That's 8 touchdowns and a field goal. I think Purdue is going to run into an absolute buzzsaw. And then there's going to be a lot of people that can say, see, no Stalions, no signs, no problem. That's an ass.
It was going to happen anyway.
And it's the same way.
Mouth.
It's the same way against Michigan State. Like, I know they're bad, but like, dude, all everybody's been saying is the only reason they've been good is because of sign stealing. And then Stalions is gone. Michigan State changes up how they call plays, and Michigan wins by more than they've won by all season on the road. And nobody says anything about it. I just don't. I don't know how that can be.
Walters, we've had to reteach our guys a new language. Good, you're 2-6. Maybe that's needed. We might have to huddle for the first time all season. Fucking who cares? What are we talking about here?
Probably should have been doing that anyways there, big dog. Spend a little less time on the bicep curls and get in there and work on your play calls. All right? That's what I would say then.
Trash.
Stop wearing schmedium shirts to your press conferences.
Look.
Woo!
Sorry for getting a little heated tonight. But ladies and gentlemen,
I did want to say one thing, because you touched on it a little bit earlier. You said you needed a hug and you didn't want. This isn't personal. None of us. Every person, well, not every person, because there's been a couple dickbags in here that just I don't know what they're doing on a Friday night. Go do something cool. Get out of your rival.
What do dickbags have to do on a Friday night? This is it.
Like 45 miles south of Columbus. Go away. Get away. I know you don't live in the city. Go do something else though. But anyway, not personal. If I'll have a beer with any one of you, mark my words. That's the truth. Chris got a little heated. I got a little heated. Probably more swear words than we've said in any other episode. All love. We just don't want to do this shit anymore. We want to watch good football and know that it's good for a reason. That's it. That's all I got. Got anything else for him, Chris?
I just hope you all have a great evening, and I'd like to thank you for tuning in.
Just put this cute little tree over here. Have a little friend, a little bush right next to him.
Truly grateful for everyone here.
All right, everybody. Michigan kicks off tomorrow night game. We will attempt. It's always tough on a night game, but we will attempt for a post-game show, maybe a quick one. If not, we'll see you on Monday night. Take care, everybody.